Hey, everybody, and welcome back. Thank you for joining us today. As you already know who I am, my name is Lisa M. Knox, the owner and founder of LM Knox Law and Mediation, where I practice family law in the great state of Florida in Tampa Bay. And so today we have a very special guest, someone who is near and dear to my heart, and we're going to talk about a very special topic. Trigger alert now. We're talking about custody issues. We're talking about probably dealing with issues of abandonment, some serious, sensitive topics. So get your tissues, get your tea, get your water, get your coffee, okay? And let me introduce you to my big brother, Maxie Williams Jr.
Hello.
Hello, welcome, brother. So today's topic, it's near and dear to both of our hearts. Today's topic, we're talking about sort of unconventional families, how we can we're empowered to recreate our families, to make our families look like whatever we need them to look like for the good of our family. Also sort of making sure that everybody knows that, family and the role that family plays is so important that you get to choose and decide, for the most part, how your family is made up and ebb and flow. And so I thought today would be an excellent time to introduce you out to the world, our world, and sort of let us tell our story. And you tell your side and I tell my side and so forth, because it is a really interesting story. So just to give all of our viewers a background, like I said, Max is my big brother. He's always been my big brother. We've grown up together and so forth. I always say that I'm his best friend. He denies it, but he is a huge part of my life. In our family, Maxie has taken on the role of Uncle Maxie for all the nieces and nephews and everyone. So for my audience, understand that once Uncle Maxie, and I say Uncle Maxie because that's how everyone has referred to Maxie, Max, so it's sort of like a comment. Am I right, Max? That's sort of how you were referred to throughout, throughout his formative years. Yeah.
I think that's a fair assessment, yeah.
At one point, he was just Uncle. I know that he is one of my son's greatest heroes. Like, he was not a fan of my marriage, my husband, so forth, but he was a fan of us staying together if we could for the good of our son. The day that my ex-husband was moving out, that day you came and you were standing in the doorway and I was holding my son and my lip was quivering. I was getting ready to really break down because my heart was broken. And you told me, don't cry. I know you're hurting. Don't cry. You'll be fine. You all will not miss a beat. I got you. That's what you said. I don't know. Do you remember even saying that?
No, I don't. Not off the top of my head, but it was a while back.
Yeah.
It was talking more than almost 20 years ago.
Almost 20 years ago. Yeah. I'm about to cry thinking about it. What was going through your mind as a family, as the big brother who is like, hey, I'm willing to step up?
Well, as I said, I don't really recall the incident, right? But, life throws you different curveballs, for lack of a better term. And so when you come upon a situation, you just have to decide you need to do the best that you can for the people that are in that situation. So, fill in whatever example you or your viewers want to fill in, but it just comes a time when if an event happens. To give a quick example, like you're planning a party event and it doesn't go so well. Maybe you don't have enough cups, maybe you don't have enough plates. The hostess the host can't really go get it. So they might say, hey, I ran out of this, I ran out of that. And then somebody just says, oh, well, let me go get it.
Right.
You got situations, you just got to do the best you can is all. It's not planned.
I will be honest. I could have never foreseen the role that you would play. It really was a co-parenting relationship that we had, a co-parenting sort of interaction that we had when it comes to him. So, for instance, Uncle Maxie, do you remember when we needed to find a new daycare for him, a new preschool?
I remember, yeah.
So we went on the search for the new preschool and so forth to see if he was going to be a good fit, and making sure, I knew that it was very important for me to make sure that on all of my son's personal documents, his emergency contact card, and, the pickup list and the parent list of all the parents who was involved. Uncle Maxie was always listed. You were always listed. If I'm signing up to do something, Uncle Max is signing up to do something, one or the other. That's how it sort of worked out. Let's talk about, I don't know if you remember this situation where we were, I want to say at the park, or maybe we were at the zoo. We were walking with my son, your nephew, and he just wanted to hang with you. And people would look at you, and then they'd look at me, and then they'd look at Connor, and they sort of, because you and I, favor each other. Do you recall that?
I recall the conversation we had after that where you pointed that out, that people were looking at you and looking at me and trying to figure out how Connor fit into our dynamic. I remember that.
Absolutely.
The event, I just wanted, we were all having a good day, so I didn't pay attention to that as much as other people may have.
And so understand, viewers, that was a common situation where Max and I would take our son out. And I'm purposely, just so everyone can understand, I'm purposely not saying my son's name because he is now of age and I'm not going to get, permission from him. And that ain't working over here. Yeah, he's of age now. He's an adult now.
No, I know that, but I don't see why he wouldn't get permission. He's a part of the story.
Well, that's true too. And maybe what we should do is involve him and get sort of his perspective on it. But that's going to be for another show. This show is about us because we put in some work. So understanding that, Uncle Max and I would take my son out for different events, going out to the zoo for the weekend or, to the beach for the weekend, which was always nerve-wracking for me because my son is all he wants to do. If it's not safe, he's like, let's do it twice. Uncle Maxie, gosh, I remember you teaching me how to ride a bicycle, and then you had to help teach him how to ride a bicycle because my nerves were shot. You remember that?
I remember both events very well.
Parent-teacher conferences, when he would do silly stuff, like the time he told the teacher that his mama was born during civil rights. Remember that? He told the teacher, he read a book about how someone could use the library because they were Black, and that happened during the civil rights movement when his mama was alive, when his mama was a little girl, and we should go and protest. That's what he would say. Remember that?
I remember that vaguely, yes. Yeah.
And you were at remember his first play? You were at his plays?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Graduation from preschool. Remember his preschool graduation? Him and his best friend at the time were valedictorians of their preschool graduation. Remember that?
Yeah.
So the funny thing is, it's all a full circle because they're both in college now. And for homecoming, their colleges play each other. So that's going to be, if I can, I would love to get a picture of them together. So then we'd have them as 4-year-olds and as 18, 19-year-olds.
Yeah.
What stood out to you throughout the process, and what were your thoughts throughout this journey?
A lot of this stuff isn't really planned. You just, you get out and do it. I mean, major events, oh my goodness. When you talk about major events, the daycare, that was, and a lot of your friends with parents can tell you, daycare is kind of stressful. It was stressful when we were looking for daycares for you. Yeah. And it was stressful when we were looking for daycares for, because, you want your kid, and you're not my kid, you're my sister, but you want your child to fit in. You want your child to be able to, how would you say it, get along with the process.
Right.
And so you want to make sure so that they can get along in society.
Right.
And so, it's kind of an important time. And like when we were trying to do that for you, I was so nervous, but you just went on and you said, I'm good. I know you guys want me to do this. And so that's what we're going to do. Mm-hmm. It was, and yeah, since we're not mentioning your son's name, it was a little different for your son. I don't know if it's a situational thing or whatever. It was kind of a touch and go, but like most children, he's resilient. He figured it out. he found his own path, and he went on about it, you know.
I remember because we would trade off on picking him up, who picked him up from daycare, because I had to work. There was some nights where I had to work late and so forth. And so we would trade off on who picked him up from daycare. And I can remember every day it was like, okay, so how do you do? Well, what's going on? What was the teacher report? And so forth, because we were not sure if he was going to adjust well to daycare or not. So, you know, at this point, I just give up. Like, I give up trying not to say his name. We just don't have to say his last name. Look, his first name is Connor, because we just can't keep saying my son, his nephew. So, Connor, if you're listening, sue mommy. If you sue mommy, you know, great. I will have to countersue you, of course, for everything that you owe me. And I don't know how we're going to put a number on life, but it is what it is, okay? For those of you who do not know, Connor's a character. You know, Connor's a character. He comes from a long line of characters. His mama's a character. His uncle's a character. His grandparents were definitely characters. And so he gets it honestly, but Connor is an absolute character. So we were concerned of how he did with the new daycare and preschool, and how his care providers did with the daycare and the preschool, because there was at one point, Connor had his director, remember he had the school director feeling sorry for him because she just thought he had a problem processing things. And no, Connor just liked to get up under her desk. Remember that?
Yeah, I remember that. I don't think he had a problem processing it, but.
No, he didn't have a problem processing it. A little joker, he just wanted to be in trouble, because when he get in trouble, then the director would make him sit in her office under her desk. And Connor thought she was beautiful, and we will leave it at fact. Because if she ever listens, she'll probably be shocked and appalled. My God. When you stepped in and stepped up, was there ever a time where you felt like that this role was bigger than you, bigger than what you could do?
Well, you know, when you use the term step up, I'm not really sure what that means now. That may mean something different per generation. Throughout the ages, families have always had to fill in the gaps, for lack of a better term. And then when you do that, you just get comfortable in your, I don't know if you want to call it assigned roles or roles, you know? Mm-hmm. And then just coming up for us, if you were the oldest, then you were the one that made the decision. You know, where we going, what store we going to, what we get, what we eating for lunch. You know,
right.
And that's how I come up. You know, Pops, he was the oldest, obviously, and then couldn't really the oldest out of me. You know. I was the oldest out of my brothers, out of my sisters, but then I had cousins, they were the oldest. And so, I guess what I'm saying is,
reach down and take care of the next level.
That's it. That's basically it, you know, and I wasn't alone. This was not just me, there were other people who helped with you, with your son, your sister was instrumental.
Yes.
And your mother was very instrumental.
Yes.
Your father.
Just so everyone understands, so no one's wondering, when he says your sister was very instrumental, that's also his sister. When he says your mother was very instrumental,
I'm sorry. Yeah.
That's also his mom.
Okay. And
our whole nieces and
our father was very instrumental. He, at that time in his life, you were his only daughter, so it's more like the dynamic was more like not father and son, but, co-conspirators,
Oh, yeah, that was my best friend. Daddy was my best friend and all. And so can we talk about that? Let's talk about family really quick. So just so everyone knows, our dad passed away a few months before I knew that Connor was coming. So Connor never met our
2005, 2004,
2004, right. So Connor never met our dad, but Connor took on quite a few attributes of daddy.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. Yes.
Connor would say stuff that we would have to sit back and look and say, well, that's something daddy would have said, very much so. So I think it's very funny how that works, because it's almost like everybody leaves an imprint. One generation leaves an imprint on the next generation. I think that's pretty unique. But we'll talk about daddy and his shenanigans on the next few episodes. Let's get back to you. So did you ever get any pushback? You were very instrumental. Like I said, you are all the school forms. Everybody knew, contact Uncle Maxie, so forth and so on. Did you ever get any pushback from teachers, administrators, anybody like that? You know, you were on doctor's forms. Everybody knew.
No, I think when it comes to family dynamics, people are just, when you show up with a general attitude of, what can I do? This is my family. I want to help. I want to do what I can. Everybody else kind of gets that.
Right.
And start working together to do that. Because not just Connor, but with other family members, I've gotten that from different people.
Right.
You know.
Right.
If you're that person that, you know, nobody can really rely on, well, then they pretty much know you ain't gonna be there anyway. Right. So, you know, that's about it. Again, it was just one of those things where it just needed to be done. Everybody wanted to kick in and do whatever needed to be done. His teachers, his whoever, you know, whoever his coaches or whatever was, you know, that was it.
So just so everyone knows, you know, once again, with the listening audience, what I mean by co-parenting, when I say we had a co-parenting relationship, we had a true co-parenting relationship, up to the fact that we lived about 20 minutes away from each other at one point, 20, 30 minutes away from each other.
I think for a majority of the time that you were in Orlando, we never lived more than 20, 30 minutes away from each other.
Right. So, but it was still 20 or 30 minutes away. It wasn't like we lived in the same household. So you
were grown, so, you know, you had to live your life. I understood that. I didn't like it, but I understood it.
Well, okay. But we still did like visitation. We had a whole visitation plan with Connor, and we would work out every year. We had a whole visitation plan. Who gets him for the summer, when, you know, pickups, moving schedules around, school events, you know,
very planned. Yeah.
Very planned. We really did. It was, okay, so he's going to be on a basketball team. What do you think about this basketball team? What do you think about this basketball team or this basketball league? Or do you think that we should do it? You know, how much is it? Who can pay what, when? Who can, you know, who has the time to take him? Who has the time to volunteer? And we both volunteered and we both took him. You know, I remember, this is like a great memory. Connor was in basketball. And I want to say that was the year that I was the coach for basketball. But what they did was every week during a game, one parent was in charge of bringing in snacks and treats for the kids after the games, right? And it was already going to be really hard for me to coordinate all of that. And you stepped up, Maxie, or you stepped in and you were like, oh no, we got it already. And you brought the snack. Remember, you were the snack and treat parent for that week for us. Do you remember that?
No, I don't remember that.
You were
bringing in the snacks.
You were the snack and treat. And I had one of the parents said, oh, I love the way your husband is so supportive. I had to be like, wait a minute. Not my husband. Not my husband. But he is extra supportive. And we sort of left it at that. And because you came in, I think you brought in the snacks of Pop-Tarts, because that's when Connor was really into the whole Pop-Tart situation.
Yeah, he loved Pop-Tarts, yeah.
Yes, my gosh.
I think he's nice.
Well, he probably likes all of it now. He's away at school, you know, doing the broke college student thing. So with that being said, we really did have a schedule. How was it in planning the schedule? How important do you think? Do you think that maybe we overplanned it, or do you think it's necessary? Because I know a lot of parents, their problem is planning the schedule and all, and sort of giving and taking with their own personal schedules outside of the schedule for their child. So what are your thoughts on that? Or do you have any thoughts?
You do, whether it's one child or 10 children, you do what you can, right? It's called family. And, you know, the dynamic is not always the same. You know, it's not all a nuclear family with a father or a mother and 1.2 children or what have you.
Mm-hmm.
But, when you have children, hopefully you will have planned activities for them. Planned activities for children is very important. It's a part of their development, and you just do what you can to get there. It needs to be done.
So there are times where, just like any other set of parents, where we disagreed on what needed to be done, whether it was minor disagreements or whether it was major disagreements. We disagreed, but in some way, we always came back to, okay, let's work together still. Now that's it. Am I correct in that? In that?
Yeah, we always work together. I mean, that's the way it was. We needed to come together, but you got to understand who's his mother, and what does his mother need and what does his mother want. And when I recognized that, and I recognized that what your overall interest is in Connor's well-being. We've talked about that before. I will always, whatever you want to do for Connor, as long as it's not to hurt him, I will back you, 1,000%, as I will everybody in our family, dealing with the children. I'll back you 100%. Now, I may not agree on some of the events that we were going to do. Like if you wanted him to join Orlando Ballet, well, then, I'm not into that, but,
right.
That's it's just the difference.
Right.
Overall, he needed to go to school. You needed to go to work.
Mm-hmm.
I needed to go to work. We were able to do it to where all three missions, all three events were accomplished.
There were plenty of times where, I think it made it easier to know that we are, even if we're looking at things in two different ways, we are working on for the same cause. We are on Team Connor. And, in my head, I'm thinking about the sandal situation. I don't know. Do you remember the sandal situation? I used to have Connor wear his sandals all the time. And you'd be like, man, don't wear stuff with the toes out. And he'd be like, yeah, Mom, don't wear stuff with their toes out. But then when he'd be with me, he'd wear his sandals. And then one day, something happened where he needed water shoes. And his water shoes was comfortable. And he could wear them out during the summertime even. And his toes were out. And that was sort of like the middle agreement. So we were just like, okay, instead of wearing sandals, we can do water shoes. Do you remember that?
Vaguely. I remember that the overall conversation was fine. When he's with you, you do what you do. When he's with me, if you want him to be around me, but you must realize he's going to do things the way I do. Mm-hmm. And you eventually had to come to an agreement with that, or come to a understanding, however you want to call it.
Yeah.
And, as long as it wasn't anything negative between the three of us, we worked it out.
Yeah.
The two of us.
Well, the two of us and the kid, but that's also an important point because we did not parent the same. We have two different ideas of quote unquote parenting when Connor was with us, right?
Yeah.
And so that's what a lot of people who are listening now would probably say, like, oh my gosh, my ex does not parent the same way. I was very much the enforcer. Maxie, I think you were more so, like you would enforce, but you were more so like real relaxed, real chill. Like I'm going with Uncle Maxie, I'm just going to be chill. We're not going to do a whole bunch of yelling and fussing and all that. It's just going to be, let's just hang out. I don't know. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, everybody has their different style, even between couples. The father's going to have a different style from the mother. That's okay, just as long as you two come to an agreement on overall.
Right. On the major things.
Yeah.
I remember we even right down to a difference in bedtimes, because remember, I was like, oh no, he's going to bed at like 8:00.
Yes, you did. Yes. Yeah, you very much enforced that.
Yes. And then he would go to your house and he was like, I get to watch Spider-Man. That was his Spider-Man or whatever. And it came on at 8. And I'm like, what?
Wait. Don't forget, you're talking about the weekend. Okay. Spider-Man came on the weekend.
Okay. All right, then.
He eventually it got to the point around after his first birthday, the dynamic was to the point to where it was just easier for me to keep him Monday through Friday instead of trying to get him, or instead of me keeping him throughout the day because I worked overnights. Right. And the main reason why I did that was to take care of, our parents.
Right.
And after that, I stayed on overnights, and I would pick him up or take him to school, or you would take him to school. I would pick him up from school.
Right.
And then on the weekends, he would be with me. And then, he loved Spider-Man. That was his favorite superhero.
Yes.
And on the weekends, I'd let him pretty much stay up. He did need to take naps though. He hated it.
Well, that's
him and one of his parents hated taking naps throughout the day.
That's when he would call me though, when you would try to make him take a nap, and he'd call me, he'd be like, Uncle Maxie is abusing his authority. I don't know where he learned that from, abusing authority, but he would call and let me know who is abusing their authority and then somehow I guess that's right around the time when you told him that, that he needed to sit down and take a moment of reflection. So wait, let me tell our audience about that. So Uncle Maxie, here in all his wisdom, he would tell stuff to Connor. Connor, it was golden, right? It was Bible if Uncle Maxie said it. Uncle Maxie would tell Connor that he needs to take a nap. He needs to have a moment of reflection where he would be quiet and I guess reflect or think or whatever. And Connor would go to school, and if things were too much, he'd be like, I think I need a moment of reflection. Or if people were making too much noise, he'd be like, you need a moment of reflection. Or if he got in trouble and he had to go to timeout, then that was a moment of reflection. Remember that?
I do remember. You would have thought that at the time I would have learned from the first generation, when you say something, it sticks, It
was a moment of reflection for everything. So that's funny.
What happened was I picked him up from school, and you know how kids are, they start learning stuff, so then they wanna investigate more. And so he was asking me different questions, and most of them I couldn't answer, like, why is the sky blue? Why is the grass green? I'm busy trying to think about what we're gonna eat that night. I need to clean them, wash them, get them ready for bed, yada, yada, yada. And so he just asking questions. And when I say I didn't know, he'd say, yes, you do. I turned back in the seat. You need to take a moment of reflection. He says, well, what does that mean? Sit there and reflect on the questions before you ask. But anyway.
So now, moment of reflection. He still takes moment of reflections. That's good news. Thank you. He still takes moment of reflections. I have no idea what he's reflecting about now, but God help us all. He still takes moments of reflection. So let's talk about then, well, I know a lot of, people listening would probably wonder, was there ever a time where you maybe thought less of me as a parent with you having to be so involved?
No, like I said, we had our disagreements, but overall, our dynamic, I keep saying dynamic for lack of a better term, right? Our dynamic is a little bit different. You're not my ex-wife.
Right.
So there's that emotion that's out of the way.
Right.
And it's kind of hard. I know the answer, but it's kind of hard for me to explain it because I don't want to offend you or anybody else.
You want to? This is your free pass. Your free pass. I'm just over here sipping my coffee. Go ahead. Free pass. Say whatever you need to do. If we need to edit it later, then we'll just edit it later, and then we'll fuss and fall out about that. No worries.
When I dealt with the children in our family, my only experience is from what I did before. Right. And by that, what I mean is when the first time I had to deal with a little person was you, and so you came up and of course, you came up, we knew each other. And, I was thinking about that. I need to pick her up from school. Once I pick her up from school, I need to make sure she gets home. Then we need to clean the house. After we clean the house, then I need to make sure that she's washed and fed, need to get her to do her homework, and so when that happened with you, And then when you came up, and then you had a little person that you had to do that with. I don't know if, I think this is the reason why we were able to work so much better as a team. By the time that it all came up, you were the Maxie.
Right. Right. Yeah.
And so you was thinking, well, you'd come to me and, you'd say, well, we need to do, if I'd like it if you help me, but, Connor needs to do this, Connor needs to do that. We need to do this for Connor. And it was like, oh, another thing he hated me saying was SOP, standard operating
procedures. Absolutely.
And so the same thing I did with you was the same thing I did with him, was the same thing that we did with our other family members. And so it's just, I guess it's kind of like ants. You know how they know how to fall in line and just do stuff that needs to be done?
Right.
I hope that's not offensive, but you know how that is?
Yeah. Everybody get in where they're supposed to be. And it's almost like we knew.
Exactly. Or as they say, get in where you fit in. Right.
Absolutely. Get in where you fit in. So there was never time, because I think that's important for our listeners to hear, because one of the things you said, which is absolutely true, is that, you would have Connor a lot of the time, because you'd have him Monday through Friday. You'd be taking him to school or picking him up. So it was like rotating at one point. And then, you would have him most weekends because he'd want to hang out with Uncle Max. Okay, cool. And then especially when I was in school, it was like, you've got him the majority of time. And I know a lot of parents, traditionally, it's moms who feel this way, or the parent who is the caregiver who feels like, oh, I should have my child with me, the majority of time. Well, why? Because I'm mom. Okay. And what else? And, no one really likes to say that, oh, because it looks bad if mama is not with the child 24/7 or whatever. There's this stereotype, I guess, that mamas are supposed to be with the child 24/7. Let me ask you, how did it feel with you having Connor a lot of the time when you had him throughout the week? Did you get fulfilled from that as well? Or was it like a good thing for you as well? Or was it, his mama need to step up? What was it?
I don't see anything wrong with him being with his mother 24/7. Now, when you ask me that, please understand, I'm a mama's boy. So I wanted to be with my mama 24/7, Let me
throw this in. I did not want to be with our mama 24/7.
You did in the beginning, but at certain stages of everybody's life, and that doesn't. You got to grow up, and so you'll get to the point to where you don't want to be around your mama 24/7.
Right.
But
right.
At the same time, for all the mothers in your audience, there ain't a damn thing wrong with wanting to be around your child 24/7 and vice versa. Okay. Right. Also, and I apologize to anybody that didn't have a father in their life, I was around my daddy a lot too,
Yeah.
Throughout the work week, well, he had to work, but there were some times when I'd go to work with him.
Yeah.
And then on the weekends, there were times when, he'd go and he'd hang with the boys, but there were times when he hung with the boys and I would be with him,
Yeah. Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with children being around their family. Now, the sensitive part is if daddy isn't around. Well, okay, maybe daddy isn't, but what about the older brother? What about the uncle? What about the cousin? I had cousins who helped me develop my upbringing. I had uncles who helped me develop my upbringing. Yep. I had my father who helped me, develop my upbringing. And so, I guess that's the thing, everybody wants to be an individualist, but there's no reason why you can't be an individualist while being around family.
Right. So I don't find it to be any, I don't think there's a side eye or a negative view over who has the child the most, who doesn't have the child the most, and all. But if everybody is making the time that they have with the child count, as you said, dad was working throughout the week and I didn't get to hang out with him and the guys as much. But when I was with daddy, that was me and daddy's time. That was our time. And and even hanging out with you, like you said, sticking together and reaching out for your extended family and so forth. I remember there was plenty of times where, a major event would happen in my life and I come to you. I come to your house. I'm going to come over. And I remember I lost a job as a mom, as a newly single mom, right? Newly divorced, lost a job. I came over to your house and you were like, well, you lasted longer than we thought. And remember, I was like, oh, I'm just so tired. I want to take a nap. And that was like a good, refreshing sleep that I had because I knew I was safe. I knew I was with people who loved me. And, I just had this event that regardless of what, I think I was sort of happy to go, but it was still traumatic and it was still scary for me because it's a life event that's going to affect me and Connor. I didn't know what was going to happen. And you were like, okay. And you were so nonchalant about it. Like, it's going to be okay either way, that I could sleep. You remember that? I came home and took a nap.
I do remember that.
Yes. So I think we've been talking a lot about it, but I think we should get it out there, like the power of extended family, because we have, mentioned, how mom played a role and dad played a role, but our cousins played a role and our, siblings played a role, and, all of these and extended families played a role. So let's talk about that for a moment, because I don't ever recall. And so, just for the listening audience, understanding that these same cousins that Max is talking about, I know them too. They, they were like siblings to us. Jean and Tyrone, they're like our siblings. Like our older siblings. Like, we all got into shenanigans with them, but they all taught us stuff and looked after us, and they were responsible for us, for as responsible as they could be for us.
That's the key word, as responsible as they can be.
Exactly. But a host of extended family, uncles, I'm thinking, aunts, God bless Aunt Dora, extended family all across the extended grandmas. We had this one Grandma Mary Hilliard. I don't know how she was related to us or if she was ever actually related to us, but she was Grandma Mary Hilliard.
I'll tell you the story. It's not long if you want me to.
I want to know.
Grandma Mary Hilliard was not related to us at all.
Okay.
So it's a sweet little story. When our mother's mother died, when Grandma died, it was a different time. So she grew up a little bit around her father, mm-hmm. but it was more, he had a lot of sisters. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure if it was his sisters or Grandma's sister. But mm-hmm. anyway, she went to go live with her aunts. Mm-hmm. Aunts, plural, right? Aunts. Mm-hmm. And so she spent time a lot with them, right? Mm-hmm. And so she lived in another city. So her aunts would visit Orlando. And when they would visit Orlando, Mama was still a child, well, 4, 5, or 6. So what would happen is one of the aunts was best friends with Mary Hilliard. Mary Hilliard would babysit our mother when she was a kid. And so when our mother got older, and when she had her children, they would babysit or be babysat by Mary Hilliard. So that's what happened.
Yes. And Grandma, so just for everyone, extended family, best friends of your aunts who took you in and raised you. And Grandma Mary Hilliard loved our mom. Like, that was Grandma Mary Hilliard. For the longest,
I always felt like she, whether
she
we
was
were
Grandma
related or not, she loved us.
Yes.
That's the way I always felt. So,
well, okay, he would feel that way.
Yes, that's what I'm gonna say.
He would feel that way, audience, because in addition to our mother, Grandma Mary Hilliard thought the sun rose and set on Max here. She truly did. She loved Maxie. Apparently, she did not like independent young girls. And we'll leave it at that. So, that is the power of extended family. So let's find out, what are your pieces of advice? Like, do you have any advice you would offer? And let's break this down, right? So what advice would you offer if, parents are having a hard time working together? Like, what advice would you offer to get them back on track if they're having a hard time working together and co-parenting their children?
I believe we talked about this before off camera. The children are always innocent. The children are innocent. No matter what your personal feelings are, and like I said, there were times when we disagree, but what's the best for the kid? What's the best for the children? One of y'all might have to work some overtime today, but somebody still got to pick up little Jimmy, little Jamal, little Sarah, little Chica, whoever, whatever. These people are the children are always innocent,
right?
And even if you're talking about, well, I got my own kids that I got to deal with, okay, but is everybody as fortunate as you? Probably not. What are we going to do for them? You can't, that saying that they say it takes a village to raise a child,
Yeah.
And I think that's the saying may be new, but that method and technique has been around for countless years, millions and millions and millions of years.
Absolutely.
And so I don't really have any advice for any of the couples or any of the other families. Just think about what you want to accomplish. I mean, do you want little so-and-so running out into the streets, hanging out with his friends, or do you want him with his family?
Right.
Because that's where you're going to learn your respect for society, your respect for rank, your respect for anything. It's through the people in your environment, right? So if you want to have control over your children's environment, start working towards that. Even if you are divorced from your better half, still don't mean y'all can't come together over the children.
Right.
It's not advice. It's just, in my humble opinion, common sense.
Just do whatever it needs to be done for the good of the children.
That's it.
Before we sign off, there's a couple of things I want to do. One, I want to officially thank you, Uncle Maxie.
That's a long time in coming. Am I gonna get a reimbursement check?
No, you're not getting a check.
That was a whole lot of diapers, Miss LM. That's a whole lot of diapers.
No, you're not getting a check. Listen, that was a gift. Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
It's definitely a gift that you gave us.
But I truly do want to thank you because, and I wish I could post the picture, but it is a picture that I know you're going to think of. There's a picture of us when we dropped Connor off for his first day of kindergarten. Remember that? And then there's a picture of us when we dropped Connor off for his first day of college. And I thank you for being in both of those pictures and all the pictures in between. I thank you.
You're welcome.
Because you definitely had a huge hand in making that young man what he is and what he will be. Now, if he ends up cutting the hell up, then I'm going to let everybody know you had the only hand, like, oh, I was so off. But so proud of him. So proud of you. So thankful. So that's the first thing. Second thing is, in addition to helping his sister and helping raise his nephew and, being a successful co-parent, Uncle Maxie is also a successful entrepreneur. So Uncle Maxie, if you will, tell the audience about your company, what you do, and how they can get in touch with you.
All right. Well, the name of my LLC, Limited Liability Corporation, is OF Operations. And the OF stands for Our Family Operations. And it's basically a technology company. I build websites, I fix computers, I install computers. I like technology. And so that's what I do for a living, tech support and things like that. You can reach me online through my Facebook, Max Williams. You can reach me through my website. It's m69y.com. And on there, it's just a whole lot of free information about technology, right? I deal a lot with open source. I like open source information, open source software. And so if you go to my website, m69y.com, I have a lot of videos and a lot of PDFs and a lot of information dealing with computers, mostly open source. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you. You all make sure to go and visit m69y.com. Our Family Operations, OF Operations. I believe that you all can also go and see him on Facebook, under Max Williams. And in the meantime, I thank you. I thank you, Max, for helping, for being, for loving, for guiding through all. I have a kick-ass big brother. I hope and pray everybody else has that same person or somebody in their life who is also kick-ass. And I thank you to our listening fans, to our listening audience. We really appreciate you tuning in, participating, asking the hard questions, and joining us. So until we see you again, thank you and take care, y'all.